Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining our webinar for wholesalers. Today's webinar includes a general update on FMD, information about the Windsor Framework and its impact on FMD in Ireland, and details of the support that's available from IMVO. I will pass you to my colleagues Colin and Leonie, who will be presenting today.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and good afternoon, everybody. Colin McNamee is my name. I'm the Operations Manager with the IMVO, and I'm going to just very briefly give you a quick update on FMD in Ireland. So from a statistics point of view, at the moment, we have just around 1,900 pharmacies connected, just over 100 hospitals, I think 101 hospitals, 84 wholesalers, 2 other dispensing outlets who are actually clinics. And at the moment, we have 364 MAHs registered with IMVO. Scanning activity for the year, you can see there's been a steady enough increase in scanning since the beginning of the year, where we're now at our peak, which tends to be the first week in a month, is now in excess of 2 million transactions in that particular week. Our alert rate in the last 4 weeks has been high, to be perfectly honest, in ranging between 0.29% and 0.1. This is actually as a result of a significant increase in exempt medicinal products that are coming into the country in a decommissioned state already and are being scanned in community pharmacies predominantly. And therefore, because they've already been decommissioned, they're causing alerts. But when we bring it down, so our end user alert rate stays at approximately 0.01% or 0.1%. And again, that's double what it would normally be. But when we take out those alerts generated as a result of exempt medicinal products being scanned, you can see there it actually comes down to 0.02% or 0.1% most recently in week 44. So to summarize, the baseline end user alert rate is consistently in the region of 0.02%, as avoidable alerts relating to FMD software and scanner issues are now uncommon. Issues which drive the alert rate in Ireland include, as I've outlined already, exempt medicinal products arriving in a decommissioned state into Ireland. And we would ask if you as a wholesaler are bringing particularly large volumes of exempt medicinal products into the country, please do check to see what state those packs are in. So we would ask if you can conduct a verification scan on exempt medicinal products that you're bringing into the country, so that if they are in a decommissioned state already, you can tell us in advance, so that when those packs do begin to get scanned in community pharmacies or hospitals, we can deal directly with those locations, and we can also manage those alerts in a timely manner, because we can close those alerts as a result of their status as exempt medicinal product. Borrowings between pharmacies and hospitals continue to generate alerts. Sometimes we have issues with hospital aggregation and packs being mismatched on an aggregation barcode. Spikes due to MAH procedural errors. To be honest, they don't happen that often, and as you would know, the majority of our marketing authorization holders are very quick to respond when we need them to. And then we also see spikes on alerts on transactions on Irish packs scanned in other markets, but other NMVOs look after the management of those alerts. We are taking all steps possible to investigate these alerts, but there is a gap because some end users, mostly, and some MAHs don't provide feedback to us, which allows us the correct information to close the alert, because we do need to understand that a root cause has been identified in order to rule out falsification. And we would ask for your continued support in alert investigation. And indeed, NMVS Alerts, which is our alert management system, is available to you. The usage of NMVS Alerts by MAHs and end users, being community pharmacies, hospitals, and wholesalers, has increased throughout 2024. And we would ask for your continued cooperation in working with us and using NMVS Alerts in your investigation of alerts. Finally, my last slide, the European Medicines Verification System, which obviously includes the IMVS, continues to perform well. We've had no significant incidents or unplanned downtimes this year to date. There's been 2 releases of the IMVS in 2024. Release 14 went live in May, and release 15 went live last Sunday evening, the Sunday, the 3rd of November. And again, thus far without incident. So thank you very much. That's a very quick overview of what's happening from an FMD point of view in the country. I'll now hand you over to our Chief Executive, Leonie Clark.
Thanks, Colin, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, and thanks for joining today. So keep going now. We'll talk about Brexit and the Windsor Framework. And I suppose what we want to start off with is the FMD impacts of Brexit, the Windsor Framework, because I suppose just to be clear, this is not a webinar about all regulatory aspects of the Windsor Framework. It's a webinar about the FMD specific elements, because that's the piece that we look after. We know there are broader regulatory considerations that need to be taken into account, and that's something you need to look at separately in regard to things like HPRA and guidance and so on. So coming back then to the FMD impact of Brexit, and the reason we start with this is it's kind of, I think, interesting to tell the story of Brexit and how that has evolved into the Windsor Framework, and then what exactly and why the Windsor Framework is important in Ireland's context, given that it is something that really is impacting the UK. So why are we interested in it? So first of all, just remind ourselves that UK left the EU on the 31st of January in 2020, and the EU law continued to apply in the UK until the end of that year. We then ended up with the Northern Ireland Protocol, which was part of the Brexit agreement, aiming to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland. And as a result of that, Northern Ireland, or NI, remained in the EU's regulatory system for medicines after the 31st of December 2020. So from an FMD perspective, what this meant was that, first of all, FMD was discontinued in GB, and by GB, I mean England, Scotland and Wales, on the 31st of December 2020, and all GB end users were disconnected from the national system. FMD remained mandatory in Northern Ireland, and the UK National Medicines Verification System, or NMVS, became known as the UK NI NMVS. What was interesting was that data upload by manufacturers to the UK NI system was optional for packs intended for sale in GB, so in England, Scotland and Wales, but mandatory for packs intended for sale in Northern Ireland. In practice, what we've seen is that most manufacturers have continued to upload the data for most packs sold throughout the UK. And I'll explain to you in a moment why that has been important from an Irish perspective. In fact, the next point actually explains that UK packs finding their way into UK markets could still be decommissioned via what we call intermarket transactions, or IMTs, against the UK system, because the data for those packs was generally available in that system, so those packs could be scanned and decommissioned without any problems. So then the Windsor Framework came along in March 2023, and it was a post-Brexit legal agreement between the EU and the UK. And what it does is it adjusts the operation of the Northern Ireland Protocol in several areas, including medicines. And from a medicines perspective, it aims to ensure that people in Northern Ireland have access to all medicines at the same time and under the same conditions as the rest of the UK. It's due to take effect on the 1st of January coming 2025, subject to the UK providing the EU with certain guarantees of compliance with the Windsor Framework requirements by that date. Now, the expectation as of now is that this will happen, and we actually expect to have confirmation of that within the next couple of weeks. Okay, so from a Northern Ireland perspective, the Windsor Framework has the following impacts. FMD no longer applies in Northern Ireland from 1st of January 25. The UK NI system will be disconnected from the EMVS. The NI end users will be disconnected from the UK system, so all the pharmacies, hospitals and wholesalers will have their connections terminated, and all data in that UK system, including backups, will be permanently and irretrievably erased. And that's significant because PAC data is held in national systems, not in the European hub. So once that PAC data is gone, we then have no means available to us to do intermarket transactions against the UK system like we would have done previously before this happens. Okay, so just looking at the impact of the Windsor Framework in the UK, and I think we need to understand this in order to understand what's going to happen in Ireland. So packs placed on the UK market after the Windsor Framework must be labelled UK only. And the MHRA has various guidance documents relating to the Windsor Framework, and we have links to them all later on in the slide deck. But in relation to safety features, it says the following. So safety features are, what we would consider the FMD safety features that are required to be on packs throughout the EU at the moment. So they call them safety features. What they do say is UK licensed pack must not carry EU safety features, which on the face of it sounds like, okay, take all the barcodes and anti-tamper devices off. But in reality, it goes a little bit further and explains it as follows. It means that any 2D barcode that is present, if scanned, should not be recognised in EU repository systems, and any such code present would need to be fully removed or covered. The reality is, because of the deletion of all the data in the UK system, and because that system is going to be completely disconnected from the EMVS, there is no possibility for any UK in 2D barcode to be recognised by the EMVS after the 1st of January. So the reality is those barcodes can stay on as is. And they are encouraging companies to continue using anti-tamper packaging, which is not surprising. In any stock in existing packaging already placed in the market in the UK pre-Windsor Framework may be supplied until its expiry date. So we will see for some time to come UK packs coming into Ireland, for example, that are not labelled UK only, because they will already have been placed in the market in the UK prior to the 1st of January. So the MHRA has issued some guidance about UK only, and the reason we're just sharing this with you is we had some discussions on the pharmacy side, and there was a level of interest in this UK only label that this might be helpful in distinguishing these UK packs. But the reality is, it's not going to be a very prominent label potentially on the pack, and therefore possibly of limited use. So what they've said in the MHRA guidance, UK only can be presented anywhere in the outer packaging. Now, they said it must be conspicuous and clearly legible, at least 7-point font, which is quite small, and the little UK only there in red, that is 7-point. And what we understand is that some companies plan to add UK only to the human readable barcode data. So, for example, where you see S/N serial number, they might, for example, replace that with UK only. So it's not going to be particularly prominent, which means if we're going to use that as a way of identifying UK packs and how to handle them, it's possibly not going to be particularly useful. Also bearing in mind that for some time to come, we will still have pre-1st of January packs in circulation in the UK coming into Ireland. So the other question that gets asked is, will there be a new UK system introduced? And this is relevant in the context of the manufacturer's decisions whether or not to leave 2D barcodes on packs that go into the UK. And there is a piece of legislation going back to 2021, which provides the legal basis for setting up a UK falsified medicine system post-Brexit. The MHRA has the Q&A in the Windsor Framework, and what they say, and this is the current position, basically they're considering all options, including doing nothing, and any proposal will be subject to industry consultation. So we're not aware of any consultation or any discussion about moving to a falsification system or a verification system in the UK after the UK NI system is discontinued. Notwithstanding the lack of clarity on the future of the system, we understand, and this has been from our own direct engagement with manufacturers, and both nationally and at European level, that many do intend to avail of the option to continue to apply 2D barcodes to packs released to the market in the UK after the 1st of January. A number of reasons for that is some of them use them for internal tracking. Some of them are aware that the NHS and various other organisations use barcodes for various initiatives like Scan for Safety, stock management, and so on. They're also mindful of the fact that if a UK system is set up again in a few years' time, they don't want to go through the whole process of re-engineering manufacturing lines to take barcodes off, to have to put them back on them. So a number a plan to continue to put the barcodes on. Some are planning to put serial numbers in, some are not planning to put serial numbers in. So it's a very mixed way of how these packs are going to present when they end up in Ireland after the 1st of January. I suppose, why is this all important? Because at the end of the day, we know that Ireland, the UK is a significant source of EMPs or exempt medicinal products in Ireland. And therefore, if these packs have no barcodes, then there are no FMD impacts because you can't scan them. But if they do have 2D barcodes, then the question arises that they could be scanned. Now, we know from a wholesaler perspective, you have control systems in place and you differentiate the EMPs, and presumably you're not scanning them. We do know, for example, in hospitals and pharmacies that they would say they have so many different requirements in terms of scanning, not scanning, that the view is we just scan everything. And at the moment, that's been fine because the packs have all scanned fine, but it will not be fine after the 1st of January. That's the problem with these 2D barcodes. So coming then to what's happening in Ireland after the 1st of January, I suppose just important to remind you, FMD still applies across the EU post-Windsor framework, and the FMD obligations for wholesalers in Ireland won't change. So nothing changes in relation to any of that. We then want to look at the impact of the Windsor framework on various different scenarios of packs either shared with the UK or coming from the UK, solely UK packs. So we obviously have joint IE UK packs. We also have joint IE UK Maltese packs. There's various combinations that are permitted. So I think this is widely known. Joint IE UK packs may no longer be released to the Irish and UK markets after the Windsor framework takes effect on the 1st of January. And there's a similar prohibition on the continuation of joint packs between the UK and any other EU market. So that's a significant change. It's something that the pharma companies are having to be considering. What are they going to do if they're relying on joint packs to meet the needs of the Irish market? So whether they look for joint packs with other markets, and we certainly know from the queries that we've had from MAHs, markets being considered to include France and Germany. So, it raises the question of dual language packs potentially appearing. In the case of the joint packs released to the Irish and UK market prior to the 1st of January 2025, these can stay in circulation until their expiry date, and these should scan fine. We don't anticipate any problems with these packs after the 1st of January, simply because the data is uploaded to the Irish system. So if you've got a joint pack at the moment in the EU, you upload the data to all the markets for which it's licensed. So we would expect those packs will be fine. Now we'll keep an eye on it, and if we see any problems, we'll intervene, but we don't expect. The bigger issue relates to UK single market packs in circulation in Ireland. And what we're talking about here is, the UK packs brought in as EMPs. The HPRA's Windsor Framework in Q&A, it was updated last week, and it now says the following, that the movement of UK or NI packs from NI to IE intended to be supplied under Article 5.1 of Directive 1183 as EMPs will still be permitted post-Windsor Framework when an authorised equivalent is not available in Ireland, in line with the requirements set out in the HPRA's Guide to the Notification Scheme for Exempt medicinal products. So I think that's something to have a look at yourselves if you're in the business of bringing in EMPs. Make sure you're aware of all the HPRA guidance. We're making that available to you for information purposes. FMD issues will arise with these UK packs carry 2D barcodes, and as we've said already, we expect that most of them, if not all of them, will continue to have 2D barcodes. And the big problem is that the option of verifying decommissioning against the UK system has gone via IMTs. And from the 1st of January, every UK pack with a 2D barcode that is scanned in Ireland will generate an exception or alert. And this will be true across the EU. I suppose because we are traditionally quite heavily reliant on the UK for EMPs, we're probably going to see a disproportionate impact, but we're certainly aware that UK packs do find their way across many countries in Europe, and this point about all these alerts and exceptions will be seen in many markets, but I think ourselves and Malta are likely to have the biggest impact. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what sort of responses you'll get when UK single market packs are scanned in the EEA, so the European Economic Area, after the 1st of January. So for products, so the first line there is the product code and batch ID are known to the MBS. So the pack data was uploaded to the MBS before the 1st of January 25. What will happen is the individual pack details will be gone because the UK system has been disconnected. But the European hub does retain the product code and the batch number for every batch that's been uploaded. So it will recognise the product code and the batch number. And what it's going to do in that situation is we're going to have a new what's called market not available exception. And what it will say in the message is the product code or batch is unknown locally, intermarket communication error, do not retry. If the product code is known, the next line, but the batch ID is unknown. So the product was set up in the EMVS, but the batch data was not uploaded. So the system simply doesn't recognize the batch at all, but it does know the product code. What will happen there is there'll be a batch not found A2 alert. So alert is obviously one that requires an investigation. We need feedback through NMBS alerts for that. If the product is not known to the MVS at all, we're going to get product code unknown exception. This might happen, for example, and we understand some companies are considering using new product codes for UK packs after the 1st of January. So while the product might been previously known by a different product code to the EMVS, they may change the product code. But again, that's one or two companies have said that because there's no level of consistent approach to all of this across the pharma sector. If the 2D barcode does not contain all 4 data elements, so for example, it doesn't have a serial number in it, the response will depend on the FMD software and whether the scan is transmitted to the NMVS. So for example, your FMD software might simply say, we can't find all the information we need to send to the NMVS, so we're not going to send anything. Or if it does send it, notwithstanding that some of the data is missing, then you get an exception back to tell you basically it was bad data. The other piece that's interesting is at the moment, if you scan a UK pack where the data is in the UK system, the state of that pack will be known to the UK system. So for example, if the pack has been recalled or withdrawn, or if the pack is expired, that will come back as part of the message when you scan the UK pack. Because there's going to be no access to any pack data in the UK system, no pack state information will be available. So the pack won't tell you if it's been, the scan won't tell you if the pack is withdrawn or recalled. It may tell you if it's expired, if the local FMD software has been programmed to pick up an expiry date, but not all have done that. So I suppose the reason we're flagging that is we know certainly in pharmacies, a lot of pharmacies rely on this expiry date message on screen as a final belt and braces check to make sure a pack is not expired. From a wholesaler perspective, you'll obviously also be interested in the recalled and withdrawn, as will pharmacies. So if the pack has been recalled and withdrawn in the UK, that data simply will not be available when you scan the pack here, if you scan the pack here. So in terms of preparing for the Windsor Framework, we've been working very closely with the Department of Health, HPRA, PSI, so the pharmacy regulator, and colleagues and other NVOs and IMVO over the last 18 months to try and assess and mitigate the FMD impacts of the Windsor Framework. So for example, the slide before where I presented the different scenarios, that slide has been reviewed and updated many times as we've refined our understanding of what's going to happen. Some of the issues have identified have been resolved via changes to the NBS. However, we cannot technically prevent UK packs from generating alerts when scanned from the 1st of January 25 onwards. So they will all generate some sort of a message on screen, which will be amber or red. Communications are underway to explain all of this to pharmacies, hospitals, wholesalers, manufacturers and MAHs and what to do to minimise problems. We'll come to that in a moment. The HPRA has published a Q&A in the Windsor Framework, which we've mentioned already, so that's obviously something you'll be interested in. And then from our own internal perspective, we're planning for extra support calls and emails to the IMVO service desk at the beginning of January. So the advice to end users on what to do with these UK packs, and this has been agreed with the HPRA, the PSI and the Department of Health. The only way you can avoid an alert or an exception with the UK pack after the 1st of January is not to scan them. Now, so say from your own point of view, I suspect you're not doing this anyway. We do know, as I mentioned earlier, that pharmacies and hospitals have been scanning these packs. And up until now, most of them scan fine, but we know from the 1st of January they will not scan. If you will get a red or an amber exception message. If you get such a message, and this is similar to our current advice on EMPs and unlicensed medicines, to use the other phrase, or ULMs, if you do get an amber or red exception message, if a UK pack is scanned, you may supply the pack unless you have overriding concerns that a falsified medicine is involved. So basically your usual visual checks of the pack, or you have any doubts about the origins of the pack, or you believe that the pack has been interfered with. If this pack is expired, clearly it shouldn't be supplied. And again, we just want to make the point that the FMD software may not be able to flag that the pack is expired because of the UK system having been disconnected. Obviously, the anti-tampering device should be looked at. And then if there's any reason to believe the pack's been interfered with, please report this to the HPRA as a product quality defect and do not supply the pack. And there's the email address for that. So just various pieces of useful information about the Windsor Framework, our own website, the HPRA Q&A, there's a link to the delegated regulation, there's a consolidated version that's been amended a couple of times, and then we've given you the various MHRA pieces of guidance, because some of you may be active in the UK or NI market. In that case, you may be interested in looking at that. Okay, so in terms of support available from IMVO around all of this, so first of all, our service desk, and it is open weekdays 8 to 8, Saturday 9 to 6, and Sundays and public holidays 11 to 6. So that will include New Year's Day. So if there are any problems in your estate, we will be aware of them. If you want to contact us about an alert, use NMVS Alerts, which is our alert management system. You will get an email from NMVS Alerts if an alert has been generated in any of your locations. So you can use the link in that to communicate with us. Or if you've got an account in NMVS Alerts, you can log in and communicate with us by your login. Or you can email alert.support@imvo.ie. Now, that account is only monitored during urgent business hours. For out-of-hours issues, please phone me at the service desk, and that email is info@imvo.ie or the phone number given above. Visit our website, and we have FAQs on various matters. On our Windsor Framework page, which you'll see linked to the homepage, we have specific Windsor Framework FAQs, but we have a general set of FAQs if you have any queries about anything. Registering as an MAH, if that's relevant to you, that's where the link is. We have guidance videos of various topics on our YouTube channel, and if you want to check the live status of the IMVS, it's available at the link shown. That link is also accessible on the homepage of our website. So if you just go into the website, you see it at the top of the page. Okay, so otherwise follow us on social media, and the HPRA have some general information, and the Commission have a Q&A and safety features, which is also available on our website. So that's a quick run through all of what we want to say about the Windsor Framework and where we're at with FMD in Ireland. If there's any questions, if you want to type them into the chat, or if you want to go off mute and ask the question, just raise your hand and Sarah will do that for you.